that our first hearing is about the coronavirus. It's affected every American's health and home and family and workplace. It's obviously infected the entire economy for nearly the last year. On this and on all the issues to come before this committee, we're going to get to work for all the Americans who have not had much of a voice in Washington or in our economy. Ohioans and working families all over the country know what that's like. They have too much experience watching the largest multinational corporations thrive, while too often our communities, our small businesses, our workers get left behind. Long before the Great Recession, our trade and tax policy abandoned the industrial heartland in working class towns and neighborhoods all over the country, frankly, too often with bipartisan support. Communities from the Mahoning Valley to the Mon Valley, from Newark, Ohio to Newark, New Jersey, all watched factory after factory close with no plan to rebuild our local economies. Entire neighborhoods and entire towns hollowed out. People felt like their hard work no longer paid off. For Black and brown workers, it had never really paid off like it should. They were the first to be preyed on by shady mortgage lenders, the first to lose their jobs, the first to get foreclosed on. Now they feel like they're watching history repeat itself. My colleagues on this committee have heard me say many times that this pandemic has been the great revealer. It's laid bare what so many Americans already knew, that millions of workers have little economic security. They can't get a foothold in this economy, no matter how hard they work. So many families are one emergency away from draining what little savings they have, or turning to a payday lender, or getting evicted. If the bus quits running after 10 o'clock and she can't make it to her night shift, she loses her job. If the restaurant where he works cuts back his hours, he has to choose between paying the rent or paying the electric bill. Last year, I was talking to a grocery worker in Southwest Ohio who told me, they call me essential, but I feel expendable. They don't pay me much. They don't protect me at work. It's not a coincidence that many of the workers corporations treat as expendable are Black and brown workers. So often they are women. This pandemic hasn't just exposed racial disparities and income inequality and general disparities and gender disparities, it's made them worse. Black and brown Americans are more likely to work in frontline jobs that can't be done remotely, or they're more likely to be exposed to the virus and the anxiety that they bring home with them. They're less likely to have paid leave, making them more likely to lose their job if they get sick or if their child gets sick. They have less savings to fall back on because of generations of wealth inequality. Black small businesses have closed at twice the rate of white small businesses. The system that's been making it harder for their work to pay off and putting their lives at risk for generations long before this virus appeared. And as for the toll this pandemic has taken on women, ask any mother how she's doing now. Millions of American women now have 3 jobs for the last 11 months. They're full-time caregivers. They're teaching their children. They're doing the job they had before the pandemic. And notice only one of those 3 jobs actually comes with a paycheck. For 2.3 million women, they simply can't do all 3. They've been forced out of the workforce altogether. That's 2.3 million families scraping by with less, trying to figure out how they'll pay the mortgage or pay for health insurance or pay for groceries this month. It's always the same story. When the biggest corporations and the largest banks need help, their allies in Washington spring into action. But when the rest of the country needs investment and support, they pretend we can't afford it. Today, under new leadership on this committee, we have a clear message. Those days are over. We will not settle for less. Black and brown workers don't have to settle for a system that treats them and their lives as expendable. Mothers don't have to settle for doing 3 jobs with no help. Small businesses like ours represented on this panel today don't have to settle for scraps while they watch corporate profits soar. Ohio and the rest of the country don't have to settle for a Wall Street first recovery. We're the world's richest country with the world's largest economy. We have the resources to rise to meet the challenge for everyone. That's what President Biden's doing with his rescues plan. It's what we will do in this committee starting today. Our witnesses will make clear the importance of a recovery that supports all Americans. We'll hear from the president of the nation's largest transit workers union, who's working to keep his members safe amidst great difficulty. We'll hear from a small business owner who's struggling to keep his doors open and his workers on the job. We'll hear from a legal services lawyer from Columbus who has spent much of his time trying to help people stay in their homes. We'll hear from the mayor of an industrial town that has suffered disinvestment for decades, has been stereotyped by national pundits, and is now facing the same challenges as cities and towns and neighborhoods in all of our states. These are voices that have been ignored or shouted down, even ridiculed by corporate elites, their newspaper of record, and too many in Washington. That ends now. We will get help to people, all people, to stay in their homes and pay their bills. We'll keep the doors open at minority-owned businesses that entrepreneurs have worked their whole lives to build. We'll keep our buses and trains running and keep those workers on the job. It's about recovery. It's about rebuilding. It's about empowering all Americans, no matter who you are, no matter where you live, no matter what kind of work you do. It's about investing in all communities. We'll show the American people, all people, that their government, for a change, their government is on their side.